All right, thank you guys for clicking on this week's video. Today we're going to go over the little book on common sense investing by John C Bogle. Now, the entire idea encompassing this entire book is the fact that it's best to allocate your money into an index fund rather than trading on your own or trading through mutual funds or really any other way. And that's pretty much it. He does give a lot of examples and cites a lot of sources, and even some of the great investors themselves like Warren Buffett, Jim Cramer, and even Peter Lynch on how his idea of indexing is the best way for investors to invest. Now, I am going to go through some specific examples from the book and some pretty cool little golden nuggets of knowledge that could be used outside of just indexing in itself. But again, this book doesn't teach any like drastically crazy investing techniques that can help you, increase your portfolio from like $10 to $1,000 or $1,000 to like $1 million or anything like that. It's actually more of a way just to set yourself up for life and to start investing young and guess buying and holding for pretty much the rest of your life until you're ready to take the money out. So again, if you were like me and you thought this book was going to be about specific ways to invest or anything like that, it isn't. So again, you don't have to watch the rest of the video because I am going to go over some specific examples that he provided for the reader that I thought were pretty interesting, and some other ways how funds work and just how this area of the market works in general, which is actually a really cool insight and pretty nice to get into. But with that in mind, let's just get right into the book summary. So first, he explains what an index fund is. And basically what it is, it's a collection of stocks that tries to track the market's gain as a whole. So instead of investing just in one stock, you're actually really investing into the market. And one of the funds he likes is the S&P 500. Now, of course, you can't directly invest into that, but you can invest into a fund that mimics that portfolio. He lets traders know that the biggest way they lose is actually through over trading, and that you should minimize the amount of times you actually trade your stocks. He gave the example that a lot of people love to buy and hold but forget the actual hold part. He then explains how mutual funds are a terrible way to invest, that pretty much every single mutual fund fails, and that they never actually even beat the market. They usually lag by about 2%, and only 2 mutual funds actually did beat the market, and he mentioned this later on in the book. Both were by Fidelity. And then my favorite example that he gave on how the stock market really works when it comes to indexing, he gives the Rocks example, which is actually an example by Warren Buffett, and he does cite him as a source and gives him the credit for it. And this is pretty much how it goes. Basically, the Rocks owned 100% of every single stock in the market, and their family was prospering, and they were doing really, really well, and they were enjoying their lives. Until one day, these little assistants came up to 2 of the brothers in this family, and they told them, hey, we can tell you how to make more money in the market, but only if you give us a small fee. The family was super excited. They're like, wow, this is great. We can get out of stocks whenever they dip a little bit, and we can get back into them when they get a little bit higher. So we hired these helpers at the cost of a small fee. Well, what ended up happening is they weren't as accurate as they wanted them to be, and they noticed that with the years to come, they weren't gaining as much as they were before. So instead, they hired more little assistants and helpers. And the process kept continuing until they noticed that their family was almost staying stagnant with the amount of money they were making. And they went to one final manager to help them. And he told them, I will tell you how to help you for a small one-time fee. And of course, they agreed. And the crazy news that they gave them was that the Rocks needed to fire all their helpers and own 100% of the market again. And that's how their family would become wealthy again. And that's exactly what they did. Because when you have all those helpers, there's a lot more fees and taxes and turnovers and a lot of things involved that actually diminish your returns. He talks about how reversion periods of falls are often followed by periods of recovery. Whenever there was a fall in the market, there was always a recovery period that came right after it. And that more often than not, the simple solutions are the best solutions to go through. Instead of trying to buy a lot of different stocks, it's just best to buy one small index fund with a tiny fee and hold it forever. Later on in the book, he even mentions that when Warren Buffett either dies or leaves Berkshire Hathaway, that he wants all their funds allocated, well, not all of them, 90% of their funds allocated to an index fund. And that the 3 main killers of mutual funds are the fact that they don't beat market returns, their transaction costs, and hidden fees. And why more often than not, you should really never go through a mutual fund. And with every single chapter ending, he cites another economic specialist or a stock trader or a hedge fund manager and their opinion on how pretty much he's right and that they should only just do index funds. And that no matter what happens, even in their funds, if it does really, really well, they'll always revert back to the mean, meaning that let's say they're up over 12% and the market's up 11% for the year, eventually they'll drop back down to 11%. They can't beat the market forever. He then gives examples of how 80% of funds actually go out of business, and that funds that, even for the time being, if they have 5 stars, they won't hold on to that forever. And how Vanguard was actually the first index fund back in 1975. Towards the end of the book, he gives examples of bonds and how the bond market is also a great way to invest, and how dividends in bonds never exceed the interest rates in bonds. Sorry, I meant dividends in stocks never exceed the interest rates in bonds. And that is pretty much it. This book was mostly comprised of the idea that indexing is the best way to go, and it was mostly just a couple hundred of pages citing source after source after source, talking about the same concept over and over again and how index funds are the best way to invest your money. I only read the book one time through, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe he ever really mentions retail traders on how they could actually outperform the market as well. So during the whole time, if you're reading this book yourself, try to be on the lookout for that, just because of the whole tonality of the book seemed that the only way you can ever get your fair share of market returns is by investing into an S&P 500 style index fund and holding on to it for the rest of your life, that it's impossible to beat the market. Either way, it was a really interesting book to see how index funds work and mutual funds, ETFs, bonds work together in the market, and even a little bit of some history in the stock market. So hope you guys liked the video. Remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe for more future content.